Hello and happy Friday. Happy USF Homecoming Week to everyone involved at USF. My name is Leslie Gibson, and I'm a third-year senior at the University of South Florida, and today I'm hosting the panel. I'd like to welcome you all to Mission Control. We have liftoff at WLP, the 10th anniversary of the Symposium. Thank you. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Leanna Fernandez-Fox, but before I do so, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my USF experience. So like I said, I'm a third-year senior. I graduate this May with a degree in International Studies and Russian language. Yeah, I don't like to say the graduate word out loud because it makes it all too real. So I've metaphorically seized the bull by the horns. I'll be making USF references throughout this, and dived into every opportunity that USF has presented. Before I came to USF, they really made me feel like a student rather than a number in an admissions statistic with over 42,000 students. I think that's pretty special to say. And they have given me so many opportunities to explore my interests, develop my leadership, and just grow into a person that they saw potential in when I was a high school senior at age 17. So this past summer, with the encouragement and the mentorship of USF students and faculty, I interned at the American Embassy in Tallinn, Estonia, where that's next to Russia and Finland. I know a lot of people don't know where Estonia is. I worked in the management office and also alongside public affairs in the Department of Defense. So the summer showed me a career at the State Department and made me fall in love with the Foreign Service. So this afternoon, I'm actually taking the Foreign Service officer exam. So yeah, wish me luck. Yeah. So if that doesn't work out, I plan to attend graduate school in Washington, D.C., or to pursue a career in international service after May. So looking forward to that. Today I have the honor of hosting the panel, and my grandmother Liz Kennedy is actually here. That's her right here. The women you see up here and the women among you are so inspiring, especially to young women like me, and they motivate confidence and success, and you guys are all just truly an inspiration to us. So now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Leanna Fernandez-Fox. She recently retired after 33 years of teaching mathematics, not my subject, at Hillsborough Community College and the University of South Florida. She is a member of Women in Leadership and Philanthropy and has served on numerous boards in our community. She's a true activist in our community and is dedicated to making this Tampa community so much better. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Leanna Fernandez-Fox.
Thank you. She's much taller and has on really high heels. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I might need that. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Happy Friday morning, and also happy USF Homecoming Week. Some of us were partying till late last night, and this was an early call. You already know enough about me, but I do want to tell you that I'm a fourth generation Tampeño. A Tampeño is somebody who's from Tampa. We made that name up, those of us that were born in Ybor City. So you'll hear that word only from people who were born in Ybor City. So my great-grandmother came when she was 14 with her sister, who was 12, on a boat by themselves from Santo Stefano de Quisquina, Sicily. And you'll find lots of Sicilians from that same town in Tampa. My father's parents came from Havana, Cuba, and he was actually born there, but came before he was even 1 year old. So my combination that you see is very common in the city of Tampa, half Sicilian, half Cuban, or half Spanish. And they all got together in the cigar factories, and that's where my grandparents worked and where my parents met. Actually, they met at Sears Roebuck, but that's another story. My father was the advertising manager, and my mother went there to help. So anyway, it's a great story. Many of us in Tampa have that kind of a background. And the reason I'm telling you all of that is that they also, as you can imagine, survived tremendous hardships and overcame all of those, so that now I'm the fourth generation, my children the fifth, have very successful lives. And it was all due to what they now call mutual aid societies. We didn't have that, we didn't call it that, I should say, in those days. We just called them clubs. You know, which club does your family belong to? Which club? And the little man would come every week, and we paid the 25 cents. He'd write it down in his little spiral notebook, and that included our completely paid health care. It included our social life as well. The beautiful buildings that you see in Ybor City, Centro Studiano, Ciclo Cubano, the Italian Club, etc., all were built with those little 25 cents that we paid every week, what was left over after they paid the doctors, I guess. And they were gathering places for everything, for dances and music and happy times, and also sad times when there were things that were not going so well for families. People would gather there and make baskets and sew clothes or whatever was needed. So this idea of philanthropy and mutual aid has always been at the core of the city of Tampa, and I wanted you to know about that part of it that is very much a part of my family. I'm a USF alum. I'm very proud to say that. And I also, before I leave that topic, I did ask my mother those hardships I was talking about when we started to go into the recession or depression or whatever they're calling it these days. I said, how did you survive the depression in Tampa in those days? And she said, what depression? I said, well, the depression, the Great Depression. And she says, well, we were poor before, we were poor during, and we were poor after. So we didn't know that there had been a depression. My grandfather sold produce like all the Valentis did. I have a mutual friend here named Valenti. We're not related, but she knows about my family and produce in Tampa. And when there wasn't enough money to fix the truck to deliver the produce, well, a crate of cantaloupes went to the auto repair shop, and the auto repair man fixed the truck, and that's how things kept going. So it was wonderful. If you ever hear about the Gallardo family in this city, they owned Florida Dairy. That man did not collect money from anyone who could not pay it. Their families had milk through the entire Depression without a penny. And guess what? Every single penny of it got paid back. So it's just an amazing story when you hear about the families in Ybor City and their philanthropy. So let me get on with today's program. As we said, this is homecoming week. And last night, some of you in the audience as well, were with us on campus as we honored 5 very distinguished alumni for their service and support to the university. The word philanthropy was rarely mentioned, but we were able to see firsthand what a committee member said as we were planning today's panel. And Cindy, I can't remember exactly who said this, so maybe you'll remember and we can give them credit. This is a great quote. First you learn, then you earn, then you return. Meaning you come back, you help, and what resources you can, you return to the university. So I don't remember who it was that said that, but it was yours? Anilla Jane. I'm sorry I didn't remember, but I won't forget it now. It's a great phrase, and it was exactly what we saw last night. Today, our distinguished panel will share aspects of their personal philanthropic journey with us as we try to answer some important questions about philanthropy, about generational impact, and particularly about the role of women in this phenomenon. These fabulous women are already known to most of us. I'll tell you their names, but you can read their bios in detail in your program on page 20 and 24, but don't do it right now because I want you to pay attention to them. Elizabeth Fowler, Dr. Anilla Jane, Liz Kennedy, and Maisie Reddy. Let's give them a warm welcome. They're going to tell you a little bit about themselves as we begin the questions. So between that and what you read in the program, you'll know them very well by the end of the hour. All right, now here's how we're going to do this, I think. It's very free-flowing and I'm in charge, so we can do whatever I say or whatever you tell me to do. After we've had a chance to get to 3 or 4 of the questions that our program committee has prepared, we'll open it up to you in the audience and give you an opportunity to ask them some questions. I'm going to try to give a lead to each one of them. In other words, they will be first to answer one of the 4 questions, but then others can chime in. And if you don't feel you heard enough from any one panelist and you'd like to hear more from them on that subject, then that'll be your opportunity when we open up the Q&A to circle back and hear some more from them. Let's see. We won't have time for them to answer, each panelist to answer every question, so it'll be my job to keep things moving, but you can bring us back around, as I said. So let's go ahead and get started with the very first question. And I'm going to ask this one to Elizabeth Fowler first, and then anyone else who wants to chime in afterwards, that'd be great. So before we get too far, we better agree, or not agree, but at least discuss, what do we mean by philanthropy? What's the definition of philanthropy? Is it just writing a check? Surely it's much more than that. So we're going to let Elizabeth tell us a little bit about herself and her philanthropic endeavors and try to answer that question. What does that mean to you, Elizabeth?
Thank you. Frankly, I didn't know what philanthropy was at all until I was 25 years old. No idea. I think the only sort of brush I had with philanthropy was my 1 year as a Girl Scout, where my mom bought all the cookies because it was really, really cold outside in Ithaca, New York, so she didn't want me trekking around outside, and that was it. But the reality was I had to work and help put myself through college, and so working in school was really all I could manage and what I had on my mind. Philanthropy was just something very foreign to me. It wasn't until I came to Tampa as a banker and I was working at NCMB, which is now Bank of America, when I was told at about the age of 25, 26, look, you got to do something. You know, our bank has a reputation and everybody has to go out and do something in the community, so go find something that you'll do. So I found Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I decided I would be on that board, and that was my first foray into philanthropy, but still didn't know what philanthropy was. So as I got involved in that, I started to get it. I started to learn and figure out what that was all about. And it wasn't about just writing a check, as I thought philanthropy was. It was about so much more of giving what you have. But it all changed for me when I was about 32. My grandfather passed away, and the proceeds of his company that was being sold went to set up a foundation. So now we had to give intentionally. We were put together as a family on a board, with all of the baggage that comes with a family around a table, and you're told to work together, and you have different views and visions and ages, and range from a grandmother who was 80 all the way down to me who was 30, and so you really had to figure out, okay, what is philanthropy? Now we can't just mess around and go join a board. We've got to understand this. And so I learned that you really have to figure out what your values and your mission is. You have to learn what's out there. You have to identify the things that will get you excited, that you'll be passionate about, want to dig in. You need to go on site visits. You have to get involved. You need to serve on boards. There's so much more to philanthropy that takes work, and you can learn it, but it takes a commitment to it to really be philanthropy. It's not just writing a check. It's everything you've got that you can give whenever you can. So it was a very rocky road because people have different ways of giving. And some people love young children, and some people want to help senior citizens, and some people want to help save the earth and animals. And then even within those categories, there's different ways to do it. There's, do you hand out food at a Trinity Cafe so that people are not hungry, or do you do Metropolitan Ministries where you teach people self-sufficiency so that they can then go by their different ways, and they're all important and valid, but you have to pick. And you have to find the things that you're most passionate about and give your time. And I think, to me, the word philanthropy now means joy and happiness. And a lot of times I get involved on boards where I am helping them ask for money from people, and people don't like to ask for money. But I'm like, you're not asking for money. You're giving people an opportunity to be happy and find a passion that might connect with them. And this really came to life with me. If you have ever heard of Arthur Brooks, who's the president of the American Enterprise Institute, he wrote a book called Gross National Happiness. And there's a happiness formula that he has, with research and economics and everything else, come up with, that our happiness is 48% genetic. We're born either positively or negatively kind of inclined. 40% of our happiness are big life events, good or bad, but they're the big things: the baby, the college, the death of a family member. And that leaves 12% that you're in control of. It's kind of depressing, right? But the 12% is faith, family, community, and work. And those are the things you can control. And the more happiness you find in those things, the better your life's going to be. And work, of course, is vitally important, and that work can be raising a child, it can be a minister, it can be volunteering, whatever that work is that validates that what you do happens because you exist. But the community is a really big part of it, and it's what you give back because you want to, not because you're being paid, but because you have something to offer, and everybody has something to offer. So when you find that thing you have to offer, and you do it because you want to, and you're not getting paid, that's joy, that's happiness, that's philanthropy.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Fantastic answer.
We could end right now.
I should mention that all of our panelists graciously agreed to allow this session to be videotaped. So those words are going to be preserved, and I'm sure they'll be replayed over and over. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Anyone else want to add on to that? Your definition of philanthropy? Good. She got it covered. All right. Great.
I'd like to add something.
Sure, Liz.
She is fabulously generous with this community. At almost anything that serves women, children, families in this community, young people, has Triad Foundation as a supporter. And I think that I told Maisie, I said, we could probably end right now, because she has defined it as it's so much of giving because you have a spirit of generosity that frames it. This family could have probably said, well, we're going to build a huge, big something or other, They didn't. They have given, her foundation gives out so that she seeds good works. She evaluates them. It's very intentional, but she has a focus, as does her foundation Triad, and they have generously worked for the common good. I mean, it really, and we had a preliminary meeting, and the definition, some of the definitions that Leanna had come up with was, what is philanthropy? Goodwill to fellow members of the human race, active effort to promote human welfare. Another one was help make life better for other people. And I don't think anything better defines a spirit of generosity, which results in philanthropy, whether it's time, money, volunteer energy, brain power, than that definition. So I'd just like to add that to those of us who are up here. I was really surprised to be asked to be on a philanthropy, because I never think of myself as a philanthropist. But, as we delved into it as a group, and as we're trying to tell you, it's this spirit of generosity, this is open, and it's really a commitment, I think, to promote good. Wouldn't you? I think
Absolutely.
it's and we do it in different ways, and we follow our passion. But all of you out here wouldn't be here if somehow you didn't care. So what do you care about? And you will follow that passion to do good, to make the world a better place. So I just like to add that.
I'm glad you did.
And I just wanted to add a
As I'm
quick
looking at
piggyback
the
to
audience, I'm
Elizabeth.
thinking we're preaching to the choir here, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead,
I
Maisie.
think one of the things that Elizabeth mentioned was joy. And that, for me, is philanthropy in terms of how I get involved with things, the joy that to see what happens just from your good work. So
Great, thank you.
We have a very amazing 98-year-old woman in Sarasota, Manatee, Betty Schoenbaum. Her family was from the Shoney's Foundation, and whenever you meet Betty, she is given to hundreds of causes, not only in Florida, but all over the United States. First thing she says, the joy of living is the joy of giving. And I think it's just a perfect example of why we're here today.
Got it. Thank you. Maisie, we're going to go to you next. Just a little bit about Maisie, and thank you for filling us in on some of your background, Elizabeth, as you gave an answer there. Maisie is a native Floridian, although not from Tampa. She's from Jacksonville, and majored in biology at the University of Florida. If there's anything I'm not, it's a gator.
you are forgiven.
I'm a bull, I'm a knoll, but I'm not a gator. And she taught for a little bit and then helped her husband in his medical practice and is currently involved in a lot of mission trips. So, Maisie, the question I want you to start us off with is tell us a bit about yourself. And were there philanthropic generational influences in your life?
Okay, a little bit about myself. I have been living in Tampa since 1981. I came back to Tampa with my husband when he began his surgical practice. And I had not been really influenced generationally by philanthropic events because my family, as I was growing up, we were just, on the cusp of living okay. So my parents basically were just trying to make sure that we could get through school, we got to college, and however, their giving was basically through their church and their activities. So they taught me that aspect of giving back early on as I learned that through my church. And then as I moved back to Tampa and got involved with some social organizations, basically because we were earning money, and then there was a chance to provide something for other people in the community. For my husband, this was a very, very important aspect. He grew up here in Tampa, left, came back, and we always knew that we wanted to be involved with the community and not just, sitting on the corner and making money and having a good time. So for me, my philanthropic endeavors early beginning, I think the first time I decided to do something was to give to a freedom school, which was located right outside of Gainesville. I was a college student, and this was a program whereby students were given after-school enrichment. And so I made a donation to that. And at the time, it was just a small donation. Maybe I had saved up some money from some other things that I did not do that I could have spent it on in college, but it was maybe about $50. That was my first foray into the philanthropic arena.
It's a lot of money for a college
It
student.
is. It's a lot of money. It took me a little while to save it. But from that point, as I said, when I then came back to Tampa and began to get involved with some of the social organizations here, I was sat on the Child Abuse Council and basically met friends who were involved in things. And I thought, that sounds interesting. Let me think about this. As it turns out, now my daughter, who is a law clerk for George Mary Scriven, also is involved with several organizations. She sits on the board of Framework. She's involved with the Tampa Museum of Art. So it has played off now to her, and that has gone down to her generation. So I am so proud that our actions have been an influence in her life. And I think that if she has children one day, that the same thing will happen. She will encourage them to be a supporter of community organizations.
Great, thank you. Anybody else want to add something to that about generational?
I think it starts off in the home. I remember going with my granddad. I was the oldest grandchild. He was a physician to not only the president's house, but the Gandhi family and the Nehru family. But he always said, don't forget humanity. When you start making money, give back. He said, doesn't matter how much or how little, but don't forget you're here for a purpose. You need to give back. And I remember going and holding his hand, going on rounds. And I would sit in his chair with the stethoscope. And I think that's where the foundation for my medical mission started, because he said, I know whatever you achieve in life, but don't forget where you came from and help others.
And you said that was your grandfather or your father? Your grandfather. And did he live long enough to see you become a doctor?
Yes, he did.
Oh, wonderful.
When
Wow.
I would go back to India every summer to visit him for a month, we would go to so many events, and the first thing he would say, he would introduce me and say, this is my oldest grandchild, Dr. Jane.
I have one thing to
Oh,
add.
that's wonderful. Sure, go ahead, Elizabeth.
On generational philanthropy, because I didn't have it until so late, we made a point with our foundation to get our children involved early, and we started at age 10. And what was really interesting is we gave them each a little bit of money they could give away, but they had to go pick something, go on a site visit, and then present it to the board. and then they would get it approved and go deliver the check, so that it was part of that.
Wow.
And what was interesting is when they're young, you have to capture what is interesting to them. And so for my son, it was a bed for the monkey house at Lowry Park Zoo, because he felt so bad for the guys who had to watch the monkeys be acclimated into the monkey group and sleep in there. And for my daughter, it was teaching emotional intelligence in Sulphur Springs and working with 3rd and 4th graders to teach them how to control their anger, and she loves psychology, so that was with her. And for my other son, it was Wheels of Success, because at 18 he liked cars. And he thought getting someone into a car, he couldn't believe someone couldn't get to work because they didn't have a car, couldn't get to daycare, couldn't finish their education, so that's what he picked. And by doing that, we've allowed them to explore things that interest them, but also teach them that it's a learning process and you don't just write a check, you have to be engaged. And so my oldest son, he's 23, but he's now on a board actually. So they're getting started early, but you never can, it's always good to start young and find things that they're passionate about.
All right, let's keep that theme going then. One of our own WLP members, Dr. Susan McManus, she's been very busy lately. If you haven't seen the Sunshine State Survey results that she just put out, they're phenomenal. But what I want to mention today is a featured article she did for Safety Review. And the statement she said was that Florida's 2 supersized generations. That's the title of the article, Florida's 2 supersized generations. The 2 largest living generations are the millennials and the boomers. Each generation, she says, has its story, and no 2 generations are alike. So, Liz, I'm going to toss this to you since you have another generation or 2 in the room. What do you think about the next generation in philanthropy? How will it be accepted and used? And
It's so interesting because I have my daughter here too, and Leslie's mother, and she is the oldest grandchild too. You know, Leslie's the oldest grandchild, and Barbara's my oldest daughter.
no pressure, ladies.
Yeah, you're right. No, she said, I have trouble separating people into generations because I'm such a person to person. You know, I really don't care what generation you are, but I do care who you are and what you're interested in. And so I'm probably not the best person to answer this question. And also, I'm the oldest person on the panel, and I am
think
not
so.
a baby boomer. But what I can say is that we are so influenced by the people around us. Everybody on this panel has already said it's been our family. It's been the opportunity that we have gotten exposed to participate in something. And I'm old enough that my friends, particularly my women friends, are all sizes, shapes. Mindy Murphy came to work for me years ago, and she's head of the spring now. I mean, but it's who you are. And so I'm not sure how the younger people are going to do it. The world is so complex right now that I think finding the time for these young people, time has become a commodity, really, that we all treasure, that we hoard, that, you know, and that's could affect volunteerism. It's a fast world now, and much of what you do when you're involved and committed to something requires time, you know.
Absolutely.
I mean, it requires time, so you have to have priorities. So I don't know that I'm the best person to answer that question.
I think you did it very well,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
Thank you for that. I'm encouraged by the newest things, these crowdfunding initiatives. You know, my sons are 44 and 38, and they live in the tech world, and it's amazing to me how many endeavors they have participated in the $50 range or $100 range. And all of a sudden, I look back 2 days later and there's $75,000 in that account. And so I think that it's the new, I guess, approach to fundraising and philanthropy, et cetera. And they can as you pointed out, Liz, with limited time, still be able to participate at that level. But I'm concerned, as you are, about the volunteerism and the amount of time that our young people will be able to give. Anybody else want to weigh in on that, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think we have a great opportunity, though, because the college kids age today and the high school kids, they have had to do community service, which was not something that I had to do. But you have to do 7,500 hours to get your Bright Futures scholarship. But to really do a college application, you need a whole lot more than that.
Yeah.
Because that's where you get your essay material. So these kids have been doing community
True.
service. They're used to it. Now you get to a college and your sorority and fraternity is required to do community service. Again, not something that I had to do. So I think they are used to it. They're used to that being a part of who they are. And I think it's just as they age, when you're young, you just kind of think inward until you start to see the world as it really is. And it'll be interesting to see how kids that have had this as part of their agenda for a long time continue it when they get out on their own. And hopefully we will have a big generation of people that will volunteer.
Yeah,
Okay,
I wanted to add
yes.
as well, one of the things that helped me in terms of getting into giving back was my sorority as well. And my sorority is a sorority that we are committed to public service, but the sorority functions well after the college days.
You can
And
give a
so
plug for the
It's
Deltas. It's
Delta.
all right.
Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And our main mission is public service. And so that was one of the things that encouraged me to look beyond what I was doing and to reach out to giving to the community, because we had various service-oriented projects that we did. And that exposed me a lot as well to other things in the community, especially within the Black community. And I want to say that with the young people now, my daughter is an avid Twitter fan, so she's always tweeting about something. But
I'm so happy to hear that.
the social media and the way that people find out about things today are just phenomenal. And so it will snowball so rapidly that at least it gets out there and they are so aware, much more aware than we are.
I think so. And you have no idea what they're preparing for. My son works for Twitter out in San Francisco.
Oh.
And the things that he tells me happen on a weekly basis, they're the new things that they're rolling out. It's an amazing way to stay connected and communicate. So buckle your seatbelts. Yes, Liz.
Can I just say, I think there is a hunger among young people to do good, to be involved. And so there is, I think that's what's going to save it. And it may come from the experience they've had or the people around. But people, not just young people, are looking for opportunities to do something good, to be a part of something. And so if we look at that broader definition of philanthropy, it is giving your time, your energy, your expertise. It's out there, and we just need to tap into it.
What do you think about that, audience? Would you agree that young people are hungry to have opportunities? Yes, heads nodding. Okay, great. Thank you. Let's go to Anila now. Anila, what motivates you to give? Is it something that you consider paying it forward, or is it something that you feel like you need to give back?
I think it would probably be both. Looking back at the experiences I've had, not only here in the United States, but overseas. Came from a family of educators, of businessmen, and I was always told that when you achieve something in life, like I said before, you will give back. Started here at USF, involved as one of the first ambassadors that USF had in the charter class, was in a sorority. I just found out another Kappa Delta sister, and our young panelist, our student. I think what happens is when you start early in life, I know Kappa Delta works with our Confidence Coalition, with Girl Scouts, and we start working with these young women, young girls at an early age, and that we ask that our chapters, and I know every sorority has a different philanthropy that they work with, that they not only give to these girls, but they get so much back from these young girls and from the different, it was very different when we were growing up. We had our parents, we had a very good support system. And a lot of these young girls, they only have a single parent home. And to have a big sister to look up to or have activities that are going on, coming into the college campuses, hopefully will put a spark in them to continue and strive and get an education. And I think that's very important today. I was always told by my mother, work in the community, you give back. And I followed in her footsteps, probably sometimes too much. Last week, there was an event that we were both honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award. My first thing was, I'm going to start learning to say no. Hasn't happened yet, but it will someday.
I don't think so.
But I think giving back is so important. In my medical career, I've been very blessed. I do go to medical missions all over the world. I work in orphanages. I work in shelter homes for children. I can't imagine that. They'd say, why do you spend so much time? Were you abused as a child? I said, no, I had a loving family and the support system that so many of these young people do not. And going to areas that probably I wouldn't walk from here to the corner, but you're walking to the hospital. People start lining up at 3 o'clock in the morning when they know the doctors are not going to start seeing patients till 9 o'clock. Gone to 4 different continents. And I think giving back when you've achieved something in life, like my saying is, you learn, you earn, and you return. And hopefully it doesn't matter the amount or the time. It's just your time, your talents, and to volunteer and give back is probably more fulfilling than anything else.
And I think we pretty much hit that when you mentioned the word joy. I mean, that if it doesn't give you joy, why are you doing it? And whenever I'm asked this question, I have been before, I always respond, I don't feel the need to give back because I don't think anything was given to me. The reason I do it is that it really makes me happy. It really just stokes my fires to see things happening because I had an idea or I served on a board and I said, why don't we take this on? And a year later, it's done. It's just a tremendous feeling to see that kind of accomplishment. And I just, to me, that's what motivates me. I shouldn't have asked myself that question.
Yes, you can.
Any of you want to add on to that? Any? Go ahead.
I just think, David and I, my husband and I, we have met so many interesting people and friends. I mean, when you're out in the community, regardless of what you're doing, you meet people you never would have met before. I mean, I look around in the audience and I see people I've met and connected with. It is you always receive more than you give, And so I don't think you'd be here if you weren't doing something. But if you're not involved, go do it because it is so rewarding. It's never about the money, really. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. When I go to Elizabeth and I've got an idea, Elizabeth, and and it does take
beautiful.
money. I don't want to be cavalier about it. And the great thing about our community is that there are people who are willing to support you if you have a worthwhile idea, and sometimes you have to test it, and sometimes it works or it morphs into something else. But it really is a joyful experience, and it doesn't matter the amount of money that you give. It's really the passion and the commitment behind it, I think,
Absolutely. I think we would all agree. Well, I have a couple more questions, but I'd like to hear from you first. And if you're still thinking, then I'll throw one more of my questions out there. But does someone have it? Leslie, you can help us with a microphone? I don't know. Maybe not. I'll repeat the question if I can hear it. Okay, go ahead. And you can direct it to either one or all of the panelists, whatever you wish.
I'm going to direct this to all. Actually,
Okay.
I'm looking for a tip. So when you have a foundation that has a large focus, we have a foundation that helps cancer patients. We meet people every day who are very thrilled to hear about what we're doing. It's a unique concept. But how do you make that meaningful contact when people such as yourselves are introduced to people all the time? How do you make that meaningful point so that somebody like you or you, Anila, get back to you and say, you know what, you're worthy of my support? What point, could you give me?
Okay, how does the foot get in the door? Yeah,
Great question.
okay.
I think
Who
it
wants to
goes back
start?
to passion. And if you're interested in that, for me, one of my passions is children. And so if I knew that this program was helping children in any particular way, I would want to know more, and I'd probably come to you and, we could have a one-on-one. But I think for me, I have to be interested in whatever's going on. If I'm doing mission trips is because I know about this community, and for me, my community is global. So it's not just here in Tampa, but it's the world. And so I think that helps me a lot to focus my attention.
So know
I
your
mean,
funder's passion.
I've been approached by many people, but if it's not something I'm interested in, it's like,
There you
okay,
go.
I'll tell you somebody
Pretty
else you
simple.
can tap.
Okay, anyone else want to chime in on
I
that?
think what happens, what you were asking was sometimes you only have that 30 seconds. Tell me something that I will remember you by. And if I have a passion for something, you say, you know, let me just tell you one quick thing, maybe a story or something that when you call me or you contact me, I'll say, you know, I remember she told me about this. And we all get so many requests. And it is something that we believe in, something that we would be interested in funding, and something that hopefully will help the community.
Great tips. Anyone else? Elizabeth?
Yes, I would just say that it's important to communicate what it is you do and then connect. So really a lot of this is about relationships, and sometimes they take time to figure out what the donor wants and what the grantee wants, and putting those two things together. So sometimes it takes time, and then if the interest is mutual, sometimes it's about availability. And we all, at least for our foundation, the stock market has a lot to do with what we're able to do at a given time, which makes me lose sleep at night sometimes. So it's about making the connections, because even if it's not now, that doesn't mean it's not ever. So you just have to keep the relationships going. And
Good point.
serving on many boards where I end up on the development committee all the time. And as Liz says, when you're raising money for a nonprofit, you start every year with that boulder at the bottom of the hill, and you got to push it back up again, because it is really, really hard work. But it's just really important that you build relationships with people. And I can't tell you how often this happens, which really surprises me, but we will make a grant to someone and then never hear from them again. And then they'll call 2 years later and say, oh, can we apply for that grant? I'm like, where have you been for 2 years? But people forget that the most important donor is the one that gave you money already. And stay in touch and keep the relationship going. It's all about relationships, because that's what gives us joy. So it's how it works, so that we keep coming back.
Tremendous tips.
Good luck.
Great. Another question.
Oh, I don't need a microphone. I don't think.
Well, stand up at least.
I'm loud. So my question is around mentorship, and probably Liz. I mean, I could tell you how she mentored me for the last 25 years, but how intentional are each of you about mentoring others? Because I hear about what you're doing within your families, but what I noticed is Liz's latching on to me at the tender age of 20, when I was 23, got me in the door so much quicker than I otherwise would have been able to break into kind of helping and giving back in my community. And now at the age of 47, I am officially feeling old, because I have my first very deliberate person that I mentored, my friend Tramika Benjamin. And the joy that I get watching Tramika's success and connections in the community, and how fast she's been able to grow a network and give back to the community, brings me as much happiness as just about anything else has. So I think that mentoring within your family is important, but deliberate mentoring with other women to help them, because there's so many people who have something to give, but sometimes women in particular, we need to be asked. And sometimes we're asking the same cast of characters. We were talking about that, but how do you all broaden the network of people that we bring in to be able to do good in the community?
Okay, now I missed the connection to mentoring. Let's go back. Your last statement was, how do you broaden the network?
How are each of you intentional? Liz has, friends of Liz
Right.
Kennedy named
Intentional
folks.
in
Right,
broadening.
and mentoring other
it
women,
now.
particularly multi-generational. So
Okay.
it goes back to the question you asked Liz, and she didn't really talk about what she does, but she had a group of, people ranging in age from the 20s to the 50s, that she every month was gathering for a while and throwing out a topic and really trying to engage women in finding their passion and connecting them to where they could make a difference in the community. And I just don't
Okay.
know how many of you have a deliberate
and could we
path.
fold one more thing into there?
Sure.
Because I want to make sure we get it in before we close. And that is, are women better at that with regard to networking and mentoring and philanthropy? Does the fact that we are women have anything to do with whether we're going to be strong at that or not? So her first question is, what are you doing in the way of mentoring, and how do you broaden that network? And does gender have anything to do with it? Anybody?
I'll go ahead and start. I think mentoring, starting with young women at an early age, is very important. Personally, I mentor at the high school level. I am in the STEM area, so I do speak to young women and why they always feel that by the time they get to high school, I'm not going to think about science as medicine. I work with the Medical Women's Association and mentor young women at that level. So I know through WLP, I've always said that if there's any young woman that's going to medical school, dental school, I will work with her, work on her essays. I will help her with the interview questions. And I have right now, I know Priscilla's here is one of our WLP scholars, and she had her first interview yesterday, and what to do and what not to do. And what I look for is in a young woman or a young man when they're coming, and I'm interviewing them for a medical school position. It is very tough to get in today. There's lots of competition. And if we can give them that little edge, I think it makes all the difference in the world. But we need to start with them, not only at the high school level, and even after they finish with their degree, their any kind of professional degree we need to mentor them how to get into the workforce, how to deal with others, whatever we can offer them, what we've already gone through, and make their life easier, and so they can be more successful.
Great, thank you.
I was just
Go
going to
ahead,
add a quick.
Go.
It's very empowering too to have women see exactly what you're doing. So I try to include, especially my daughter's young friends, because they're the ones who are right there. And so I invite them to come out and not just at the fundraising level, but come see what we're actually doing. And wouldn't you like to be involved with something other than just your work that you're doing? So
Great. Liz?
Well, I'm an unintentional mentor. Just like I've never thought of myself as a philanthropist, I never thought I was mentoring, Mindy. I think women are so relational, and what I think helps, or at least helps me, is I always see some possibilities in the young women, medium women, whatever, around, and I tend to focus on that. And I've never really thought about it being intentional or mentoring. And I don't have a lot of experience to really share, like how to do an interview or that kind of thing. What I think somebody mentioned to me yesterday is I give a woman some space and respect to contribute. And so it's kind of simple. It's kind of just, and they seem to thrive when given opportunities. If you can recognize Mindy's terrific, and we've got great stories, and but I never thought of it as mentoring. She brought so many skills that she didn't really need a mentor. She needed an opportunity to fly. Maybe that's the theme, right? I didn't.
There you
That
go.
just came, you know.
That was better than my
good
closing.
job. But I encourage you to, when you're with a woman who's maybe struggling, to think of the positives there, to look and say, well, look at what you can do. I mean, my gosh, and I can't help but put this out because you knew I was going to do this, because I've got another idea, which right off, everybody blanches. I want, and I'm working with some women to break the cycle of poverty for women in our community. And we're talking about how you can create networks that really are open, where there are resources, mentors, whatever it is, but the women are connecting with each other. Women who are I work in Sulphur Springs, and I've connected with somebody who is eager to work with the women in Waimama. Hugely different communities. But the commonalities are the poverty, the lack of openness and opportunity. And we can do this, and so it's that, and mentoring would be one of them, coaching. But also, we're talking about how women, at whatever economic level they are, can support each other.
And this is, it's the connection, it's the relationships. It's saying, yes, you're looking for a job, I'll support you. I don't have any contacts, but I know you need a job, let me know how it goes, I'll pray for you. I'll do. So I'm not sure where I'm going with my answer. But
We get the idea.
you get the idea,
Yeah,
and it's and so it's all about relationship, and women are so good at relationships, and so stay tuned.
Yeah,
And
sounds
I
great.
think, I think
Very
it is in our
exciting.
DNA too.
Oh, it is
I
in our
really do.
DNA.
I believe that.
And
We're nurturing,
Elizabeth
so.
wants to add something to
Well, I'll
that.
add that Liz Kennedy was my unintentional mentor. I've been following her around for about 15 years.
Truly get it.
The reason that she's a mentor to me and is because anything she starts it, she gets it going, and it lasts beyond her because she is so intentional about
That's
the
so
work she
important.
does. So as a funder, when she says she has an idea, I usually want to crawl under the table because I know I can't say no. But I also know that whatever it is, it will get momentum. It will be sustainable. It will last. And that's why she's been a mentor, because I've seen her on the ground with all of these nonprofits and what she does. So pretty incredible. So I've sought out people like that to follow around and learn this business. But I don't think I'm a mentor. I'm an unintentional mentor too. If I'm a mentor to somebody, I'm not aware of it. But the other thing that I would say is that women are really good at thinking about all the things all the time. So when we are committed to a board, it now becomes part of the basket in our head that goes on all day long. And we go to sleep worried about the fundraising thing we committed to, and as we worry about our children and, did we do something right or say something wrong? So it becomes part of us when we commit to it. So as women, we embrace it, and it becomes part of who we are, and that's great. There's a wonderful part of joy in that. I would say the downside about being women is that we also get really passionate and emotional. If we care so much, we tend to sometimes just do it because it feels good, but forget to look at the business aspect to make sure that it's being impactful, whether it's a money gift or a time gift. Is it working? Is it making a difference? Am I making something better? And sometimes we skip over that part just because it feels good. So you have to kind of take part of that brain and sometimes take the emotion out of it and make sure you're being really clear and intentional.
Wow, ladies, I think you were pretty incredible, all of you. There were so many nuggets here that you gave us. I'm so glad we filmed this because I couldn't write them all down fast enough. I don't know about you. But I'm going to close here with a quote, and I want you to listen carefully to the linkage between the sentences. How wonderful that no one need wait a single moment to improve the world. In a world where there is so much to be done, I felt strongly impressed that there must be something for me to do. Isn't life about determining your own finish line? I thought those three went together so well, and they're from three different people. The first one was from Anne Frank. The second one was from Dorothea Dix. And the last one, Isn't Life About Determining Your Own Finish Line, was from our last year's keynote speaker, Diana Nyad.
Oh, that's right.
So I just thought that we could close with a connection between all three of those. They were excellent. I think all of you have been excellent. And in my unofficial capacity from the University of South Florida, I bestow upon you a PhD,
Oh, good.
which
Really?
stands for a philanthropist of the highest degree. So,